Okay, good morning, you beautiful human beings, guys. It is a beautiful day. We have an amazing show this morning that we are going to get through to. But very first and foremost, guys, I wanted to ask you a question, right? The question is this. If you could have a choice of when we should be live in the mornings, when would you vote? I'd love to know in the comments. Please vote. What time in the mornings works the best for you to catch up with the day, to be live with us? It's easy for me to set a time and say it's 7 a.m., it's 6 a.m., it's 9 a.m., it's 10 a.m. But what time in the mornings are most of you available, right? I had this question from a couple users yesterday asking Dane, can we do things a little bit earlier? Can we do things a little bit later? Or would a pre-recorded show help you, right? In the sense that pre-recorded, super early in the mornings, you can watch it, open it, have all the info you need for the day, trade opportunities and setups. Because again, the primary trading activity we are going to be doing is during the New York Stock Exchange, right? In the afternoons when the US market opens, that's generally when we see some of the bigger moves. Now, again, please remember, we are ramping up the signal service. So I'm busy, obviously, fine-tuning the team to make sure that we can pop out some amazing trades. We've done some tests this week, and there's some massive things coming, right? Trade opportunities on US30, trade opportunities on gold, trade opportunities even on cryptos. So we are going to be setting that up and making sure that that is just super sleek and super sexy. So the morning show should not affect how we get into trades, but I just wanted to know from you, what time in the morning would be best for you to receive all the information that you need at your fingertips? So if you guys could just put in the vote there, just pop in a time, let me know. Is it 7 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever the case may be? Is it lunchtime? I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. But just a quick shout out to everybody that's in our community. I can see Rishmi is in the house. I can see David, Lana, Alverno, Heinrich. What is happening? John Zabiso. I can see the beautiful Miss Marsha Bart's in the house. I can see Smart Choices, Chris H, Zachary Lee, Alvin, as well as Hein. Hein saying 24/7 a.m. Lee is saying 4 a.m. And just remember, guys, make sure it's GMT +2. If you're on a different country, just obviously tell me that it's a different time zone. So we have a ton to discuss this morning, and I'm going to do things a little bit differently, right? Usually we run through the news, we jump into the charts. However, I want to unpack a series of events that is busy happening today and try and make sense of them for you so that we can look at trade opportunities around them. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump in and let's have a quick talk around this US debt ceiling, this crisis. Because as with all things, you guys know I'm a little bit skeptical about big news houses and broadcasting the media, and stocks are sinking because of, remember, as I discussed yesterday, in order for markets to offload to get their profit on a stock share, whatever the case may be, they need willing and able buyers and sellers in order to do that. So a lot of these things are generated, not every single one, but a good portion of them. The big money is made by making the public believe that something is heading in a certain direction in order for them to offload, take their profits, either accumulate or redistribute profits or stock shares, equities, whatever the case may be. So I want us to just look at the opportunities here, and this will be beautiful if it plays out, but that is why I want to take you guys through a detailed process. So again, we keep hearing about these stocks, potential stocks are going to sink as, there's a debt ceiling, so on and so forth. And we can read a bit deeper, and I'll obviously share that article with you guys. I'll drop this article directly into the chat here. I'll maybe pop it to the beautiful Miss Marsha Bart. She will drop it in the chat for us. But ultimately, if we read a bit deeper into it, we're going to see, and if we have a look at the S&P 500 heat index, we can very clearly see, the markets have taken a massive hit over the course of yesterday, right? So across the board, US 30, US 100 have all had this gradual sell-off. However, I'd like to now transition to the charts, and I want to show you what my thinking is over what we could be potentially doing from a trade opportunity perspective. So I want to switch over to US30, and I want you guys to see this. I'm going to maybe switch over to a cleaner version, and I want us just to do a quick recap, right, of where we are on US30, what has happened in the past, and what could be happening as we speak at this moment in time, right? So if we look at US30, otherwise known as the Dow Jones, this over here, this fall off over here, that is COVID, right? COVID hit, February 2020, everyone panicked. There was a quick panic, huge recovery, fastest recovery from a recessionary type fear panic sell-off, right? The US30 ultimately performed extremely well, And then last year, right, being the start of 2022, was one of the worst years in the stock market. We can see that represented right there. If I zoom in a little bit closer, you'll see it right there, right? So worst year in terms of the US 30, NASDAQ, whatever the case may be. They follow a very similar pattern, but they are slightly ever so different. Now, if we have a look at where we are now, right, there's a very, very strong possibility that we could be finding a little bit of support here, right? Initially, we broke out of that terrible, 2020, broke out, made a retest. We came back to a similar level that we've seen in the past. However, if we look at the most recent development of this trend line, it starts to make me wonder, could we be in and could we potentially start to see some sort of rally off of this area? Now, there's a couple things we can do even further to have a look at this, because remember, the news headlines are saying the stock market's in turmoil. This debt ceiling is, guys, the US is too big to fail. That debt ceiling will be raised. They will reach negotiations. But what does it do leading up to it? It creates a bit of fear. It creates a bit of a panic. It creates a bit of a sell off. So what does that fear, panic, and sell off end up doing, right? It ends up driving stock lower to a level that may be low enough for the bigger investors, for the whales, for the banks, the hedge funds to start potentially buying into. So let's look at this a bit closer. This is a 1-day time frame, and I want to jump into a 1 hour, and I want to show you guys something that I spotted off this morning. So if we have a look at a 1 hour time frame, and we look at that trend line that I drew out there from pretty much the start of the recovery, let's see, that's August, September, October 2022. We officially broke out, I would say November 2022, right? That was the end of that bear market structure. If we follow that trend line, apologies, and I obviously have pushed through there a little bit, but if we follow that trend line, you'll see it where we are right now. We're starting to form a triple bottom right now as we speak, right? Now, again, that debt ceiling, the date there is the 1st of June. They need to have resolved it. They need to have had, lifted the ceiling, rearranged it, renegotiated, whatever the case may be. Now, this has popped up in the past. If you guys remember when we streamed, the interest rate announcements with Powell, that is one of the things that came up, right? They said, hey, listen, what's your opinion about the debt ceiling? And Powell very simply put, it's not in their mandate to discuss, alter, intervene, but it's a non-negotiable, right? And I'll try and find the clip from one of our live broadcasts when that was said, but he said it's not a negotiable. It needs to be moved. It needs to be solved for. It needs to be lifted, right? For those of you who remember when we were broadcasting that. So looking at where we are now on US 30, this is now currently a 1 hour time frame. We're busy smacking out that triple bottom, right? We're busy hitting that level, and that the level specifically is that $33,000, $33,041.28. So I'm very, very interested to see what we see develop here on the US 30, but I do believe this is going to be potentially triggered by some sort of fundamental news, meaning the second we hear that Congress or whatever the case may be, once these guys have received some sort of conclusion or they've revised, that I believe is going to be a trigger or a shoot for stocks to potentially recover. And this might happen quite quickly. So I'm thinking about this morning, how do I prepare for that without, this could happen at 10 o'clock South African time. This could happen in the evenings or afternoons in the US, 10 o'clock South African time. Are we going to be watching the markets? From my perspective, probably not. So how do I cover myself from this perspective to potentially catch a trade like this? And if not, on the opposite side of the thing, should we fail the support level, how do we potentially trade that? Now, this afternoon for the US session, and I'll get into the fundamentals a little bit later, we don't have all too much fundamental data. We've got some crude oil inventories, which shouldn't have as much of a bearing on the US 30. It can, but shouldn't have as big of a bearing. But I see us having a very, very big opportunity right here on this support level for a couple of reasons, right? We fail support and we retest, massive potential sell-off opportunity, because as I've shown you here on a 4 hour time frame, we would then obviously be breaking a massive support level, right? If we can pull the support level right across, you'll see no matter how far back in time we go, the support level has held true for a number of stocks, right? Even though it's pushed through, it still acts as a major support level. However, on the opposite side, the opportunistic or positive perspective that I'm potentially looking for is I'm looking for a potential breakout opportunity on the top side here. Should we get that announcement that, hey, listen, they've reached a conclusion, debt ceiling is solved, been moved, lifted, altered, whatever it is that they want to do, say, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And that is what I'm looking for in potential breakout opportunity here. Now, very, very simple to follow, and that's pretty much going to be on a 30-minute time frame. You just want to draw out this market structure. Just make sure you're covering some of these highs. I've obviously gone quite extreme. And the reason why my resistance level does not start at the absolute high of this market here, right, is because if you drop down even further, you'll see that this was a false move to the top side, right? False move, markets hung around a little bit, collapsed, tried to push, and then ultimately that massive failure there showed that this was just a little bit of a false push. So that true high of that market would be representative of that level there, which is why I've pulled my level there. And that's where I'm looking for a potential entry to go long. We might even end up seeing that as early as today. So US 30, Dow Jones, something we want to be paying a little bit of attention to. Now, there's quite a bit of distance between us and a potential breakout. Not massive, but it's 1,600 pips, right? So again, this could happen today. This could happen in dollars for lunch, and best believe we will be live, and that's what I'm gonna be looking out for, right? I do believe in this particular case, this will be triggered by news. Again, the news being that the ceiling has been lifted, right? So that's the first thing that I want to speak about this morning that we need to pay a little bit of attention to. You can map it on your side. You can utilize pending orders should you wish. However, I do really want to be in a position that we can trade this live. Now, what I will do in addition to that is, should I hear that there's an announcement or that there is talks going on or they've reached some sort of conclusion, I will jump on and we will go live, right? Whether that is 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, whatever it may end up being, I will jump in and I will go live. Again, super important. Telegram link is down below. And I know if you have many Telegram groups, I know it's irritating. You see, receive alerts, you receive a bunch of things. What I'm going to be doing, right, is I'm going to be creating a separate Telegram group, right, that will just be for show notifications, meaning you won't see crazy messages, you won't see rubbish, you won't see anything else. Just when we go live, here is the link, right? So I will be creating that. I will put that link into the main group. You want to leave that unmuted, right? I know I've got a ton of groups on my phone. I mute all of them. Only 1 or 2 of them are unmuted. So unmute that group so that you never miss when we actually do go live. Even better and even easier than that, just go hit the like and subscribe button so you never miss a brand new upload. So this one, I definitely want to be trading live. I do believe we're going to have some good opportunities right there on the US 30. Now, moving back into markets, there's not a ton else that's busy being discussed. Obviously, Musk is in the news. Again, you know, he was one of the early founders of OpenAI, and he, from what I can gather, kind of regrets pulling out of that investment opportunity. Is one of the seed founders of OpenAI, but outside of that, not all too much is going down. However, I'm going to move on to the next piece, right? Looking at some of the fundamentals for today. As I explained this morning, the pound took a bit of a beating in terms of some of those inflationary data points in terms of PPI. And again, some of these items came out much lower than expected, but again, that is good for the future of the pound, right? When inflation is starting to come down, that's a disinflationary cycle. Initially, it's bad for the currency, but it's great overall because it means, again, as I've spoken to you guys in the past, as we see inflation cool down, interest rates will also start to cool down, right? So we want to see inflation come down. We want to see some of these CPI, PPI numbers reduce. Inflation will start to cool down. However, on the flip side, when we have a look at South Africa, which is the next item we're going to talk about, is we have the ZAR CPI coming out as well this afternoon. Well, this morning rather, sorry. That's going to be at 10 o'clock in the next 45 minutes. Now, I've dived into the South African Rand CPI, and we're going to dive into a little bit more detail with that too as we look for opportunities. But again, I just want to point out the South African Rand is called the rattlesnake for a very specific reason, right? When, you know, I've seen on the South African Rand, unemployment can go up and the South African Rand gets stronger. I've seen unemployment go down. We've seen positive things happen for the economy, and the South African Rand loses value. So the rattlesnake, for a reason, meaning it I don't want to say never ties up to the fundamentals, but it very rarely does. So what I've done here on the CPI, because I know this might be of interest to many of you, and I'm going to be sitting here trading that as well, is I've gone and dived a little bit deeper into some past data. How has the CPI reacted and what can we potentially expect. So what the first one I've gone through here is I've looked at the CPI, straight CPI for the year on year, right? And what I've gone and done here is I've gone back to specifically the 19th of April, right? Not too long ago, pretty much last month. And CPI was higher than expected, meaning inflation was higher than expected. They expected a 6.9. They ended up getting out there a 7.1. So that's what we want to go do next. We want to go have a look at the ZAR, and we want to go have a look at, what did that what was the impact, what happened. So right here is the 19th of April, right? And the CPI data on the 19th of April came out at about 10 a.m. in the morning. So if we go have a look at 10 a.m. and remember, if you're using HFM, if you're using Trade 245, 1 hour, it's basically, if you're reading 11 o'clock on your chart, that's actually 10 a.m., right? So if we go have a look at the 11 a.m. candle, right, you'll see when the CPI came out, initially, it was a positive right there. And I'll zoom in one click closer for those of you who are maybe on a mobile device. When the CPI came out at 11 o'clock, at 10 a.m., sorry, the 11 o'clock candle, there was an initial boost, right? South African Rand went from 18 Rand 21 to 18 Rand 31. Okay, there was an initial boost. However, subsequently, and not too long after that, when the US session started, then we saw a little bit of a move towards the downside. Now remember, right, that move up is a weakening of the Rand. Now this again is why we call it the rattlesnake. In every other country that we've seen higher than expected inflationary numbers, it has actually boosted local currency. So remember on the dollar, when we saw higher than expected CPI numbers, the dollar absolutely dominated. Wall Street started to fall off. And why is that? Because Wall Street was scared of the next inflationary or the next interest rate announcement. Because again, when inflation ramps, interest rates needs to come and curb and basically stomp rampant inflation. So when we see a higher than expected CPI, PPI numbers on other currencies like the dollar would benefit from that initial move. Wall Street will then suffer. And that's why we saw those inverse correlations between the dollar and, let's say, Wall Street, US 30, NASDAQ, so on and so forth. In this particular case, right, the South African Rand actually lost value from an increased inflationary number, which it shouldn't happen or shouldn't be the case. But then when the US session started, it absolutely collapsed towards the downside. So then my next thought was, okay, Dane, well, maybe I'm only then looking at the straight CPI. What about core CPI? And you guys will remember, CPI, PPI has got two components. We have CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is essentially the consumer inflationary numbers. But then we have core CPI, which removes the volatile instruments like energy, gas, and food. Those items that really fluctuate and move the number around. So I thought, well, okay, let's look at core CPI, and maybe that was different. Maybe that was a different reason. So I went over onto the core CPI side of things, and again, let's see, core consumer price index, otherwise known as core inflationary numbers. Again, 19th of April, core CPI came at 5.2 instead of the 5.1. So this again confirms what we've seen previously. However, again, the South African Rand lost value, because remember, when USD ZAR is going to the top side, it means the dollar is buying more and more of the South African Rand, meaning the South African Rand is losing value. US session came in, and then we saw an absolute collapse, right? When the US session started, New York Stock Exchange started, we saw the USD ZAR go from 1831 all the way down to 1806. So that may be a potential outcome for today. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and look, is there any other factors that could have contributed towards that on the day? What was the dollar doing? What was the index doing? What was happening on the stock market? So I'm going to dive a bit deeper, but I found that pretty interesting for those of you who want to look at that and potentially participate. However, trading it from a scalping perspective may be extremely difficult, for the reason being that before the actual CPI, right, we had a little bit of an indecision. There's pretty much a dead candle here, and then on the CPI we saw a little bit of a move. So we may be able to scalp that at 10 o'clock, which we will then obviously look at, and I would advise just monitor and view it. However, I'd be more interested in terms of where we would be after the US session. So with that being said, that's great, Dane, thank you, amazing. With that being said, where are we now? So again, this is USD ZAR. I'm just moving back into where we are, right? So Monday I pointed out USD ZAR could and is pushing through the support level, right? And again, just drawing it out, and ignore my chart looks a little bit crazy. I'm trying a bunch of new things as we prepare and ramp up for our signal service. But ultimately, right, Monday we spoke about that potential failure of this level. Now we did fail that level, right? And we started to make a little bit of a rebuild here, but as you can see, we are moving sideways. So we have another opportunity. And for the keen eye among you, you'll start to see that there is a little bit of a market structure here and available to us in order to trade. So I'm going to drop down to a 30-minute time frame, and hopefully that becomes a little bit more clear, right? I've got a ton of things happening on my charts. So the loading times are a little bit crazy. Your loading time shouldn't be as bad as mine. My computer's doing overtime just to try and keep up with that. So I would think this is a fair, I would say a fair market structure to potentially look at. We still have a decent support below us. We've got a multitude of new supports, but I think this is going to definitely be the level we want to look out for. Traditionally, right, and removing the rattlesnake title from the South African Rand, higher than expected inflation numbers means that the currency should benefit from that extra purchasing power, whatever the case may be. So in normal, if this just wasn't the Rand, if we saw a higher than expected CPI core as well as normal CPI, I would expect the South African Rand to fall on this chart, meaning gain strength against the dollar. Again, being what it is, I really would not be surprised whatsoever if the inflation numbers come out higher than expected at 10 o'clock and we still see the South African Rand lose value or move to the top side. That could then obviously change on the US session. So this would basically be the price action or the market structure that I would monitor, and it's going to be super easy for you to follow along. Just simply isolate, go down to 30 minutes. You might want to drop even further to 15 minutes and just isolate this last move pretty much from the 22nd where we are right now, and see if you can get some decent market structure to give you any sort of signs of potential breakthrough, any potential signs of a potential breakout, right? I think that's going to be super important. Outside of that, removing all the other news from the equation, those are the two big things on my agenda for today, is obviously looking at the South African Rand, looking at the dollar, and then obviously trading the setup this afternoon as we get into dollars for lunch. Now remember, on Monday, I taught the new strategy we're going to be using where we follow the iceberg in terms of that New York Stock Exchange move with a potential reversal that's going to be happening. However, I'm going to be spending a lot more time trading and being available throughout the afternoons and evenings, especially around the dollar time frames, right? Specifically as we are generating trade opportunities. That will be a separate group. That is going to be the premium group, right? Premium Plus, that if you have a funded account with HFM, a funded account with Trade 245, and you are able to get into that group, send me proof or screenshot that your account's funded and we'll get you into that group. So I'll be monitoring markets and spending a lot more time preparing my own trades that I can distribute for you. And remember, to trade opportunity, it's not considered financial advice in any way, shape or form. It is up to you to see what I'm doing, make an informed decision, choose your risk management, and choose for yourself whether that is some trade that fits your profile and something that you would like to look at. Right, next I want to talk about real quickly is gold. And gold has done some pretty spectacular moves. Specifically this morning at 8 o'clock, we saw a massive sell-off in volume on gold, right? As I was preparing for the show, I started to see a massive tip of volume on gold where pretty much the build-up that we saw in early hours of the morning had basically collapsed and failed. We saw a massive sell-off on the price of gold. Now, where we are sitting right now, we're sitting in this consolidatory phase here, right? In the sense that we've broken through previous support, which is right there, right? Gold is currently sitting in this phase here, and this is a level that I really want us to have a look at specifically for potential breakout to the top side or a continuation to the downside. Remember, when we see a big bear move or big bull move, right, we generally will follow that move with a bit of consolidation, right? In this particular case, and what we would generally like to see, right, is we would generally like to see some sort of consolidation that would generally move slightly higher, that would constitute or at least get closer to some sort of known fib level, right? In the sense that, you know, it moves further up. We would look at our Fibonacci levels and say, okay, great, listen, you know, this retracement has gone to the 61.8 and then a potential failure towards the downside. However, in this particular case, we're not seeing that. We're simply seeing a very, very tight consolidation under and beneath this area, telling me that gold is ready for its very next move. Now, again, this is also going to have a ton to do with the debt ceiling. Again, with regards to the dollar strength. So for this afternoon's New York Stock Exchange session, I'll be doing a full analysis on where the dollar is in relation to all other currency pairs. Again, you guys know the term, it's the dollar index, and we're going to look at where the dollar sits. However, for this morning and for scalping opportunities, I would definitely look at this area at where we're currently sitting, right? Right where we are now, $1,972 to an ounce of gold is that resistance level, and having a look down below, 19,970 is going to be that support. So above and below potentially may be a trigger there we might want to look at potentially following, right? So I'm going to be paying close attention to that. You might want to do the same on your side. Very, very simple. On MetaTrader, right click, set up your alerts higher and set up your alerts lower. You may even potentially want to deal with this from a pending order perspective. It is completely up to you. Now, another very interesting trade that I would like to talk about this morning is going to be Euro USD. So Euro USD, I'm seeing a very similar pattern if I look on a 1 day time frame, and I know I'll get some trouble for this, right? In the sense that people say, well, you know, why am I not looking at this support region? Why am I not looking at those lows? Why am I taking my level from this particular place? And the answer is very simple, guys. First and foremost, you must remember when it came to euro dollar, there was all this hype about the parity, right? 1-to-1, right? Traditionally speaking, €1 had always been worth more than $1, right? The second we dipped into that parity, this level right there, right? If you have a look at the right hand side of the screen there, this parity level is right about there, okay? The second we dipped into the parity level, everybody was saying, oh no, right? Has tables shifted, right? Is the dollar now more powerful than the euro? So you need to remember that moment in time. In addition to that, I always look at the point of breakout of any moving trend, right? So if we're in a bear market and that's a point of breakout, I always consider that as a very important moment of imbalance between buyers and sellers, which could constitute maybe giving it a little bit more, elevating its status as a potential support / resistance. So because of that, I'm looking at that from a trend perspective, and I'm seeing where we are right now, and I'm seeing a very, very interesting trade opportunity currently existing and or sitting on the euro dollar. Now again, this may also be related to, you know, the debt ceiling and how that would affect the dollar, how that would affect the rest of the markets. However, all I want to point out is that if we have a look on a 4-hour time frame, we do have this major sort of consolidation, or this major sort of bear market structure there. Quickly, let's do a quick camera reset. We have this major bear market movement there, and then we see there's a little bit of a push that are going to potentially look at breaking out. Now, we aren't very far away. There's about a 28 pip trade, right, to break through resistance, but I do want you just to take note of that level, right? Should we go through that, that would be a trade I would look at going long on for a couple reasons. First reason being, it's not a scalp, right? We are going to be then looking at a swing trade situation where we could bank 300 plus pips. 300 plus pips on FX is a big amount of money. In addition to that, right, I'm going to go ahead and open up, let's just have a look here. I'll open up another trade here. But in essence, on Euro USD, something like a major pair, your margin requirements are tiny, meaning you can open up decent sized trades, a lot, 2 lot, 5 lots, whatever the case may be, depending on what your account can handle. And some of these longer swing trades can really pay off. So something definitely worthwhile keeping note of. USD CHF, as we spoke about on Monday, has been acting a little bit wonky, right? We were sitting below that potential breakout zone. We're trying to come back into zone. As we looked at yesterday afternoon about 3 o'clock, we saw initial push down. We got a little bit of a pin bar here, and we're kind of sitting on USD CHF. So USD CHF, I kind of really just want to wait and see how this plays out. Do we make it into further levels? Do we get back into some sort of market structure? Because if we zoom out again, we were in this massive bear market cycle. We saw loss of volume from the RSI on this bottom end here, constituting a potential turnaround. However, I would like to see some sort of push here, potentially a new high, a retest of a known support level before potentially getting long on USD CHF. In this particular case, USD CHF meaning the dollar gaining strength, on a Euro USD long, potentially meaning the euro gaining strength, right? So now again, we've got to look at that correlation. Would it feasibly be possible for the Swiss franc to lose strength while simultaneously the euro gaining strength. That is something we're going to have to monitor and have a look at, because it is possible that only one of those two will be right. If we see the euro USD rise, it is more than likely we would see a USD CHF fall, just from a pure correlation perspective. So just keep that in mind, not to just willy-nilly shoot long term. Specifically on swing trades, those bare fundamentals and correlations need to be on point and they need to be correct. So it is something we just need to pay a little bit more attention to. So again, USD ZAR is definitely going to be something we're going to have to pay attention to for a potential breakout. USD we will be dealing with this afternoon, as I explained on my cleaner looking chart, which is there. We are at that key level of support, and I'm very, very keen to see how this plays out for the New York Stock Exchange session this afternoon. We don't have all too much fundamentals that could potentially edge on or help out the dollar, or specifically US30 this afternoon. We only have crude oil inventories that will have a bit of momentum, and that'll be coming out at about 4:30 this afternoon. Right outside of that, guys, we will be live this afternoon for the dollars for lunch session. I'm going to be live and behind my PC pretty much the whole day, and you will start to see some of those trade opportunities coming through. Primarily, we are going to be focusing a ton on gold. We're going to be focusing a ton on US30 as well as NASDAQ. And I'm going to be spending more time on currencies, because I know that is where you guys enjoy things. And in addition to that, and last and not least, please do not forget, I have not forgotten about Bitcoin, right? We are going to be spending a bunch more time looking at Bitcoin. I spent a little bit of time this morning just getting back into the history of Bitcoin, what has happened, where that low was, and are we in a potential breakout season? And what could we expect to see from the crypto poster child, right? Are we potentially looking at some sort of reversal here? This is a one-day time frame, right? Everybody's been fairly quiet and sleeping on crypto, whilst in the background, crypto has pretty much moved from that $15,000 to $26,000, right? Massive, massive gain. So we are going to be spending a little bit more time, and I'm primarily focusing my attention on what is happening right now at this moment in time on crypto. However, I'm not seeing a clean market structure. I'm not seeing anything super tidy that I can say with confidence that I'm looking for a breakout. I'm trying to dissect this higher region on crypto. This is obviously a 1 hour time frame, and I'm trying to make a little bit more sense out of some of these levels that we're seeing. In the perfect world, I'd like to see a nice clean triangle, something that we can potentially look at a breakout and trade. If there's anything you're seeing, as always, please do let me know. We can obviously consider that. We can talk about that. We can see about how we integrate that together as we dive a bit deeper into these analysis sessions. So I haven't forgotten about cryptos. I will be including so much more. And again, if you guys are part of HFM, there is a multitude of cryptos. I know a lot of you guys have asked and said, Dane, we need a few more cryptos. What can we get? What do we have available to us? And at the moment, we have pretty much about 20 different instruments we can trade with HFM, as well as a whole other multitude of stocks, shares, bonds, and just a ton of other things available to us in the background. So if instruments and a vast variety of instruments is your game, then you pretty much are sorted there. I mean, there is just an endless list of instruments available for you to end up trading. So again, we will be live this afternoon. Please remember just to let us know what time in the morning best works for you for a show, pre-recorded, live, whatever the case may be. It is up to you. Let us know. We will customize around that. I'm still getting into the flow of things this week to make sure that we're back on camera, we're getting frequent, we're getting consistent, and then we're going to release the final product, right? And just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up over what I think that will end up being, I think what we're going to end up doing is the following, right? I believe, and what I would like to do is do the US sessions, but have it a little bit more, how do I say, not as solid and stuck in stone. So meaning if there's something new, fundamentally data coming out, I'd obviously like to trade that, potentially trade for longer, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever the case may be. You guys can jump in at any point in time. Remember, as I send a trade or as I take a trade, I'll have the team literally setting up those perimeters and sending it to you. So you don't necessarily need to be live in order to get access to what it is that I'm trading. That's the first thing. But B, what I would like to do is after that trading session is done, immediately shoot and prepare for the next day. Meaning that afternoon, I'd like to do a pre-recorded show of what's coming up tomorrow or the next day, everything you need to know and so much more. and I'd like to have that in your inboxes nice and early, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever the case may be, so that you can wake up, watch in 15 minutes. This is what I need to know. This is what's happening in the world. This is the fundamentals. This is the price action. Here's some cool charts, so that in 15 minutes, you've got everything you need to know. That's the ideal world for me, to be live in the mornings. I feel I can do just about everything the day before, pre-recorded, easy for you, can watch it anytime. And remember, the separate groups will give you the information that you need. So personally, that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm trying and essentially shooting to try and achieve with my team. So there's a quick update from me, just a little bit about that. Just quickly going through the comments, I can see bargain man. No, I've always pronounced this wrong. It is bargain man. Yes, Marsha said I did it wrong last time. What did I say? I said something crazy. Fabian saying I have an 8-month-old twins, so I don't sleep anyway. Let's go. That's beautiful stuff. Also, I have had an offer from some amazing people in the community that we are going to be building a Discord channel, right? Which is going to be a lot more complex than just normal Telegram. In addition to that, we've also got the team working on a Telegram channel to add and remove permissions, that to move you guys around, to have frequently asked questions, to do so much more. So just going to be a ton of different updates that are going to be coming through. So I will keep you guys absolutely sorted all the way. Right, we will be having a lot of improv live streams. I'm going to create a separate group just for notifications of when we go live, so that keep it simple. It won't have a ton of messages. Only when we go live, I'll give 15 minutes notice so you can get it. Obviously, the best way to do that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That way, when we do a public live broadcast, you never miss out. Outside that, guys, get those accounts funded. Right, I will be announcing something really crazy coming in the next couple days, but I think I want to announce to you right now. Right, guys, I want you to go into the Telegram group, go and smash and have a look at the pinned comments. Actually, what I'm going to do is let me open it up. I'm actually going to send it through to you guys. For those of you who just want a head start, there's just a little bit of a gift from me to you, just to share the love. I'm going to go ahead and do this really quickly. Let me go find that really quickly. Okay. I'm going to drop this in. I actually can't drop it in the comments. I'm going to ask the beautiful Miss Marsha Bart to go ahead and do this. Before I announce this publicly, right, this is what I want you to do. Go smash the link, right? Go and open up an account. In the account options, right, there's what is called a no deposit bonus. What does this mean, right? Well, this means that HFM will physically give you $50, right, that you can trade with. You do not need to deposit a cent. They will give you $50. And that means with that $50, if you take $50 to $1,000, that extra $950 is yours, absolutely free, right? This is a world first. We've been in discussions with them for quite a while to bring this to fruition. As you guys know, our Mr. Musa Beloy has obviously been instrumental in making this happen for our community. And what this does is allows people to come and join absolutely free, take $50 and do something with it. Obviously, $50 is not a life-changing amount of money, right? It's just under 1,000 Rand, but it gives you an opportunity to come back in. If your confidence has been knocked, if you've struggled in the markets, if you just want to get back on the seat, right? Go and open up that link. They're going to give you $50. You can't withdraw it. It's not yours, but you can use as equity. You don't have to put in a cent and you can trade, right? There's some trading conditions that are linked to that. They will email that through to you once you create your account. But if you take $50 to 1,000, you draw out the $950, right? There's 20 grand that you've made and you didn't have to put in an absolute single cent, right? So yeah, there we go. Lee Janssen, if you have an existing HFM account and you want to be part of the DVDM Markets team, part of our grouping, part of the premium groups going forward, have a look in the Telegram group, how to migrate your account and how to get it moved under the DVDM Market brand so that you can benefit from everything that we're going to be doing here for free. Bargain Man says, I should have just went with an HFM account. Guys, please do yourselves a favor, right? Have both accounts. Have a Trade 25 account, have an HFM account. All right, we never want to be in a position where we need to move. We never want to be in a position there's drama, there's crises, there's anything wrong. Have both accounts. Establish for yourself what works best. We've got amazing account managers on either sides of the fence, and think for yourself and ask yourself what works best for you, right? This is just something HFM is doing. listening to the cry that we've had, that people want to get into trading. They don't want to use demo accounts because it messes up their psychology. How do we give them an opportunity to trade real money whilst exposing them to the markets at the same time? So the link is out there. Go and do some amazing things there. Go have some fun, and let's go out there and see. Absolutely, guys. Listen, much love. Appreciate the time. As always, I'll see you guys a little bit later. Dollars for lunch, and let's have some fun in the markets. Other than that, guys, have yourselves an amazing day. Hit the like button. If you haven't hit the like button and you're here, you are a suspect. Even better than that, go and share this video with somebody else out there. They can go grab the link. They can do their thing. I will post the link in the description down below as well. Share the love, put it out there. Let's see what we can do. As always, remember, you are amazing. I'll see you guys a little bit later. Until then, goodbye.